This knob is one of the coolest features of the DeWalt DW735 thickness planers. That right there. My reason for saying that is that with that knob, you can set extremely repeatable, accurate depth of cuts if you're doing a lot of work and you don't want to have to measure each time. You set that to the depth the thickness you want, and it will repeat it accurately every single time. I've never seen it wrong. Now, let's turn this 3/4 inch board into a 1/2 inch board for the new rockers. One 1/2 inch. It's maybe a needle width short, but in woodworking that really doesn't matter. I know I've got my headset on still, but 1/2 inch. Oh, they're exactly 1/2 inch. So there's the demo. Now I got to turn this into the new rockers. So draw one of them. I'm going to use as a template because it's in really good shape. The other one I can throw away. But I'll cut them both out of here on the bandsaw and then trim, work the edges and make sure everything fits correctly, and then we could probably finish up this chair. I cut it in half, and just to correct myself, when I took the first measurements out of the planer, I was measuring where there was a little bit of snipe. That's where that one needle width or so came up. Well, if you measure it anywhere else, oops, oh, I gotta set this back to 0. If you measure anywhere else in the board, there we go. Oops, 1/2 inch, exactly. So the planer didn't make a liar out of me. Now, the next step, of course, is to draw on here the pattern for the new rockers. And this is the old rocker, that's the good one. It has wear, so it's the width height here and the height here is wider, it's narrower here. You can look at the wear marks, the wear lines here on the decades of rocking back and forth. It is rounded over, but it has worn through that. I'll have to round this over once I finish cutting it out and sanding it correctly to shape. But since it's narrower here, when I draw the line, I'm going to bring it along the bottom here and kind of rotate it out just a little bit and then back in to kind of make up that difference, and I can really sweeten that up with the sander. This is maple, so it's not going to wear nearly as quickly as this piece did. So let's draw the line out, making banging noises. Hold it down tight. Hold the pencil in. Now here's where I'm going to rotate it out just a little bit and then back in again to make up for that lost material. Let's see what I got here. Okay, that's just a little more than 1 5/8, and where I've got that, where I moved the pencil out, it's the same. It's the same. So maybe I have a good eye. Anyhow, that draws it out. Now the next step is just cut these out of the bandsaw and then sweeten them up with the sander and do the round over. So let's go to the bandsaw and cut these out. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put these together with some double-sided tape and put them on the sander and sand them together so they'll be exactly the same, or yeah, as close as I can get. It's going to be a long, tedious thing, and of course, and that'll probably be a time lapse. But let's make these the right shape. Okay, that's about it. It's nice and smooth, nice curve, clean to the eye. You notice what I did is I ran the 80 belt first, and then the 120 belt, and this will get finished off with finer sandpaper at some point, 220. But right now I've got this about where I want it, and so the next thing is break it apart, and we're going to do some radius cutting on this side, on the router table. Just want to break the corners. This is 1/2 inch, so it's going to be kind of tricky, because I'm going to be using probably using a bearing bit, because I got to do a curve. Can't run it against a fence. Onto the router table. I'm sure a lot of you have come up against this. So this is 1/2 inch stock. I want to round it over on the floor side of the rocker with a 1/4 inch roundover bit. Great, you can do one side that way, but since it's 1/2 inch stock, when you rotate it over to do the other side, the bearing now is riding against the rounded over portion and will go too far into the workpiece. So what I can do is I can do the first pass with the roundover bit. I'll make couple of pieces of 1/2 inch poplar that I'll stick down with double-sided tape, use a patterning bit to follow this exact shape, and use that for the bit to ride against while I'm doing the other side. I hope that makes some sense. So let's get started. We'll make the first pass, and then we'll make the pieces for the pattern bit to ride against, the roundover bit to ride against on the other side. Okay, what you saw there was, of course, me cutting the radius on one side. 1/4 inch bit, roundover bit is in here. I put on my little, keep your hands away from the router bit top. It has its own dust collection. And I slowed the router down. This is a variable speed router. I slowed the router down to reduce the possibility of burning. And the cuts against the grain, which you can't get away from that because the grain goes this way. So you're going against the grain here. There's a little bit of fuzz on it, but it's not enough. Not enough to make a difference. It can be sanded out very nicely. So let me get up close and personal. There's a round over there. Can't get it on camera. Get out of the way. Oh well. There it is. You can see it. So now I got to make the piece that goes on the other side that'll ride up against the bit. It goes on this side, so it rides up against the bit, and I can have a nice symmetric cut on the floor side of the rockers. So this is what I was talking about. So I've got a sacrificial piece of poplar here. Here's the rocker, and the rocker has a round over on one side, but it's still flat here. So I've got a trim bit in the router table. I'm going to run the bearing of the trim bit along here, which will trim this the exact same size and shape as this. Then when I flip this over like this, I can run the bearing for the roundover bit against this piece of wood here to give me the correct roundover here. It's going to be tight. That bearing is going to be very close to the edge here, but it should work fine. So let's do one. There you go. So I'm going to do the other one now, and then I'll put in the roundover bit, and we'll take it from there. funny as it may seem, I was worried about nothing. So it turns out that I had just enough flat surface left on this where I could actually run the router bit through without getting a, and get a nice rounded surface here. So I really didn't need to make those little jiggy things to run it through the router table. So got to sand these up, just make them look pretty, and then we'll move on to the next step, which is going to be putting this thing together, I think. And that'll be the next video. I've got a few little glue cleanups I have to do on this. There's one checked piece I need to repair, which is not worthy of putting in a video. And then we can go on and finish it, which means gluing on those new leg pieces and setting those up and then getting the runners in place. And then the hardest part is going to be staining because it's maple. Anyhow, so until next time, make great things out of wood, and hopefully you don't make jigs that you really don't need.